Our hearts are heavy. We will miss him dearly, but he left footprints and he left portraits that will last well beyond our time. When we face moments like this, it should be a reminder to each of us that one day we will be the guest of honor. I think if we are constantly reminded of that in our path, it would cause us to treat people better. It would cause us to be nicer, cause us not to be mean-spirited and ugly. It would cause us to be just like Brother Johnny P. These moments remind us that grave space is reserved for each of us, and that reservation is without the privilege of cancellation. You can cancel your dental appointment, your hair appointment, but you cannot cancel this appointment. When I think of Deacon Johnny P., this text came to my mind from the book of Origins, the book of Beginnings, the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 37, verse 3, we find these words posited. It says, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age. And he made an ornate robe for him." And he made an ornate robe for him. I want to share with us for the next little while from the subject, Johnny P's coat of many colors. Parenthetically, I need to remind each of us, you have a coat. I have a coat. All of God's children have a coat. And if you have a coat, people will hate on your coat. If you have a coat, sometimes you might have a little hatred in your heart or some insecurity about the coat that others wear. Sometimes we hate others' coats, the coats of race. We hate others because of the coats of gender. We hate others because of the coats of sexuality and who they choose to love, coats of religion, coats of socioeconomic status, coats of educational prowess, and coats of otherness. All the while forgetting, having amnesia about the fact that God is the one who gave all of us our coats. God loves us. There's a Latin phrase from my school, Virginia Union, that says, Dominus providebi, God will provide. And if we'll be honest, we may not have what we want, but everything we have has come from him. Our coats are different. And differences does not mean one is superior or inferior. Our coats are different because we each have a different relationship with our God. And our coats become more vivid with service. Our coats become more colorful with service that we offer to our brothers and sisters. Our coats have many colors, but can I call them this, John Patrick and Shelton? Can I call them Johnny P? Johnny P's coat seemed to shine more vividly because of his love for everyone, his love for his family, his love for his church, Shiloh Old Site, and his love for his fraternity, and I have a little difference with that, but his love for his community and his fellow man. All of us would agree that Johnny Plummer Johnson was a creator. He took a blank canvas, just nothing but white, but he saw what was going to be on that canvas before he lifted the paintbrush. He was an originator. He was a designer. He would make something out of nothing. And he was a person who wanted to make not just pictures to be hung on a wall, but he left an imprint on so many people's lives. And he painted the canvas of kindness, the love, and all of these kind of things because Johnny P. Johnson was and is a designer, a producer, a maestro, a virtuoso, a genius. Yet, with all of this going for him, good looking on top of that, with all of that going for him, a whole lot of folk, you couldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. But he was very humble, very loving, very approachable. And to add insult to injury, if you will, that some people just have an embarrassment of riches. He looked good. He was a top student. He knew how to paint. He knew how to talk. He knew how to move in every situation, in every circle. And on top of that, he had a jumper that Steph Curry would envy. He was a teacher, professor, an artist, a philanthropist. He poured into so many people. He was a Renaissance man. He made Walker Grant better because he poured into people's lives. He made Shiloh better. He made Fredericksburg and the world better. Son, brother, husband, father, grandfather, mentor, and friend, all of this and so much more. Johnny P. Johnson, debonair. Even with all the success, he was still a very humble man. Even with all of the success, he was willing to help the least of these. We all have our stories, don't we? We have our personal stories of how he touched our lives individually and collectively. But let us not forget that he was a man who loved his family. And while we will miss him in the community as a giant, Mrs. Jean continues this life journey without her lover, her best friend, her husband. John Patrick and Shelton will continue this sojourn without their father. Grandchildren will continue to mature without the guiding hand of the family patriarch. He was a great man in an era where great men are few and far between. His greatness made him well known, again, in the region, state, and even internationally. Again, with all of his success, with all of his renown, he was incredibly humble. He touched us with his paintbrush of love. He touched us with his paintbrush of kindness. He touched us with his paintbrush of fairness. He touched us with his paintbrush of gentleness and brotherhood. Brother Johnny P. believed in being peaceful and not sowing discord among the brethren. It was George Bernard Shaw who said, and later Robert Francis Kennedy echoed the same sentiment, "Some men see things as they are and say why, but I dream things that never were and say why not." That was Johnny P. He was an artist who painted the world not only as the world was and is, but he painted the world in the way he wanted it to be. He saw things that clearly other people could not even comprehend. His artistry was inspirational, and he delighted in painting, but he also delighted in giving paintings away and teaching would-be artists, as this fine gentleman just spoke to us. Raise your hand. This is your time to participate if you have a Johnny P. original in your house. Some of y'all need to raise 2 hands. Raise your hand if you took painting lessons from this gentleman genius. Some of y'all learned how to paint. Some of y'all still need coloring books. Johnny P. Johnson believed in harmony. When I first walked in the doors of Shiloh Old Site, he pulled me to the side, and we had a conversation that I never shared with anybody, and all of the details you don't need to know about. But he told me something that helped me on the journey. He told me that you need to be comfortable in your own skin. He was a man who believed in harmony. He was genuinely kind because, you see, some people feign kindness. They fake kindness, or as my friend down in Alabama would say, he make like he kind. But there was not a false bone in his body. He was one of the most genuine individuals that I ever met. And we will miss him dearly. The great artist in the world, names that many of us would recognize artists like Picasso, Michelangelo, Vincent van Gogh, Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt, George O'Keeffe, Salvador Dali, Raphael Monet, and others. But we were blessed to have this giant in our midst, Johnny Plummer Johnson.